Good evening and welcome to Martin on Melrose. I'm Leonard Caplan along with Dr. Charles Martin, back for another season of Martin on Melrose.
Year 2, Leonard. It seems like we just began this process not too long ago.
And our special guest today is the new principal for Melrose High School, Dr. Daniel Burke. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Leonard.
Nice to have you here, Dr. Burke.
Thank you.
And before we get into the life and times of Dr. Daniel Burke and his plans for Melrose High School, let's make note of the set designed by last year's graduating senior, Jason McDonald. Finally finished.
It looks terrific, and I hope the audience can see that the graphic says Martin on Melrose. Did an outstanding job, and I wish the members that have been watching this series for the past school year will appreciate the graphics that begin the program, and we want to thank our student production crew for that work. They do everything for us. They're volunteers, and we appreciate their dedication to TV production and to the fine instruction they get under Leonard Caplan, their instructor. So we wanted to get those commercial messages out in front of the audience at the very beginning of our new season, year 2.
Thank you, and it feels much more professional being in front of this set, I think.
It does.
Let's go to Dr. Burke, and thank you for joining us tonight. And let's talk about where you come from. What school were you at before Melrose High?
My educational career started actually in the north end of Boston at Christopher Columbus High School. I was there for 6 years, and I went on to Catholic Memorial in 1972. And at Catholic Memorial, I was a guidance counselor, a math teacher, a football coach, director of development, vice principal in charge of student activities. I did a lot of things over those years. I also, at that time, or during that time, was a member of the Boston School Committee. And that was probably a career-altering decision on my part. Because as a member of the school committee, I saw public education up close. Mm-hmm. And after looking at what I was doing in the private sector, I became convinced that I wanted to go public, so to speak. So I went back to Boston College and worked to get my doctorate degree, and my first public school job was in Wareham in 1992 as principal of Wareham High School. I stayed there for 5 years. During the 5th year, my mother became very depressed and ended up in a nursing home, and I felt I should be closer to Boston. So I resigned in March, effective in August, and went looking for another job, and landed in a happy little seashore community called Situate. And interestingly enough, the 2 years before I came here, we prepared for and accepted a visit from the New England Association of Secondary School and Colleges, and Dr. Martin heard that I was interested in a little more responsibility and came and got me very interested. I applied for the job here, and frankly, I think it was probably the best decision I've made in my educational career. And interestingly enough, we're going through an accreditation process for Melrose. We're preparing this year, and the visit will be pretty much a year from this month.
That's right. October of the year 2000.
And you've just been through that in Situate.
I just went through a 2-year experience in Situate doing pretty much a similar situation. The accreditation standards have changed starting in the year 2000, but the process is pretty much the same.
Now, here's a question for both of you, because I don't know the answer to this. If a school fails to attain or retain accreditation, does the school get closed down or something?
Well, the way it works is the school community, that means the faculty, parents, community people, students, involve themselves for a year of self-evaluation. They take a very close look at what they're doing in the classroom, co-curricular-wise, and they write it all down in a book. And they measure it against the standards that the New England Association Committee has set for all schools. Then, for 5 days, a group of people come in, selected from different schools in New England. They get an advanced copy of what is written, and they measure what is written against what they see. And they generally, it's a very cooperative thing, And they generally commend you for the things you do well. And I don't think it's something you can exactly fail if they find that there are very serious, egregious problems that have not been addressed over a long period of time. They might put you on probation. The first time they visit, you won't get worse than a probation. I mean, I'm not looking in that direction here at Melrose High at all. Then you could either get a 2-year review and a 5-year review, or a 1-year, 2-year, a 5-year review. Situate High School got a 1-year, 2-year, and 5-year review, but they were fully reaccredited. So that's basically what the process is. And of the 2 years, the first year is probably the most grueling, because you have to look at what you're doing and say, now, is this what we say we're doing? And you have to examine all aspects of school life. The extracurricular, the co-curricular, what's going on in the classroom. Is what's going on in the classroom exactly the same as what you're saying is going on in your curriculum book? Are we offering all the services that are needed to the school students? And when you finish that compendium of committees, then you send it off, and they select a team, and they come in and they check and see if you're doing what you say you're doing.
The accreditation process is critically important for 2 reasons, and I think Dr. Burke began to touch upon it. The new standards are all classroom-centered. They want to know that what you say you do for students to support that learning endeavor is taking place. The only way you cannot be reaccredited is not to have the visiting team accept the invitation to come visit your high school. That won't happen. We certainly are going to be prepared, and we will send the compendium of material from our self-study to them at the end of this school year. When that process is completed, Dr. Burke is right, you can receive accreditation up to a 10-year period, but usually they monitor the first, the second, and the 5th year to see that the recommendations are being acted upon in a favorable way so that you're improving the standards. The other part that's critically important for high school youngsters themselves is the fact that many colleges and universities will not accept a student's application if they have not graduated from an accredited high school. So the impetus is upon the professionals within the educational district to provide that support, because the ultimate loser in a case of loss of accreditation isn't so much the high school or the faculty that's teaching there, it's the students that graduate and may not be able to get into the school of their choice because that college won't even process their application if the high school is not accredited. That rarely happens. It has happened in some schools in New England because of money issues and around tough fiscal conditions. But generally speaking, all high schools put themselves in a position, and that's part of the rigors of being a high school teacher, is that every 10 years or so, you must go through this self-assessment. We expect that Dr. Burke and his staff will do a credible job.
Now, coming from the private school world, they had to go through the same process of accreditation, correct? Or else colleges wouldn't accept their kids.
It is all public and private schools and colleges, and they're now thinking of expanding into the middle school and the elementary schools as well. So every single school that is a secondary school is accredited by this organization, whether they're private, parochial, diocesan, charter school, all sort of measure themselves by the benchmarks that are put out by the association.
Okay, let's move along and talk about Melrose High School and some of the changes that you've implemented in some of the rules at Melrose High School. That's all people seem to be talking about these days. You expressed in your opening to the faculty that you're not tearing things down, you're making a good continuity phase, but you're improving on it.
Well, I think you first have to look at a general philosophy. A school is not simply a building, it's a living memorial to our past and a dedication to our future. And as a very special place, in my view, after church and home, is school. And being a special place, I don't feel that hats belong there. I feel it's a place of business, and the business is education. And I think the same rules, for example, of attire, should hold for a school as hold for IBM or EMC. I think what we want to do is we want to inculcate in the young people of Melrose the importance of getting a very positive and fruitful education. And that, in order for that to happen, you have to have certain things lined up. You have to have the stars in the galaxy lined up that makes that opportunity something that's positive.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't learn anything if you're not in school. When I arrived here, there were essentially two choices. I had two arrows in my quiver if someone was unfocused on the importance of education. I could keep them after school, or I could send them home. I know nothing of any lasting importance that's learned in the street. So we changed those rules and we said, you can stay after school. As a matter of fact, every time you're late, we want you to stay after 3 minutes for every minute you're late. We can have you come in to what we call academic jail, which is in-school suspension. You've misbehaved, you've done something that's not really too smart, and we're going to have you stay in a room, do your work, and think about the effects of your actions. Now say we go to the third step. This is a young person who acted very irresponsibly, broke the rules, and would normally be suspended, go home, take a day off, think about it. Well, that's not good. So we have what we call Saturday school, which is a 4-hour session from 8 o'clock to
With
12
you?
o'clock. With me, or one of my other administrators. And then if all else fails, we have to send the young man home. Each of these steps usually involves a meeting with parents, or at least communication with parents.
Right.
I think that the young people of Melrose have responded in an incredible manner. I went to a dance last week, and I saw the young people that attended the dance, an awful lot of juniors and seniors. They enjoyed the social activity. We'll be having more of them. But I think they're beginning to value the special nature of this place called Melrose High School. And that's my principal job here. My principal job is to make sure that my teachers have what they need to deliver the goods, and to make sure that those goods are being delivered and accepted. And that means that occasionally I'll have to talk to students. Occasionally I may have to talk to faculty. I have not found what is considered a bad faculty member here. I have found an incredibly large number of very dedicated teachers, educators who want to deliver the best product to the young people of Melrose. And I can't say that I'm the only newcomer. We've hired 25 or 26, Mr. Superintendent, since I came here. We have a lot of new blood. I had a youngster come in and say they wanted to go back to middle school for ski trips. And I suggested put an advertisement in the afternoon announcements that we want some advisors for a ski club. We have 3. I mean, there's a vitality that is come awake in this particular environment that makes it kind of an exciting place to be. And I have found that at any time you raise the bar for young people, they always respond in a positive way and go over the bar. And I found it to be this way here. I don't think that I could possibly have a better match for my desires as an educator and the clients we have in this building. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Martin for having brought me here.
That's a great thing to be able to say about any place that you would work.
Well, I think the critically important factor here is, I appreciate Dr. Burke's compliment, but I think a great deal of credit has to go to the candidate himself. When we had the search team looking at candidates, Dr. Burke certainly made it clear what his goal would be, what his expectations were for students at the high school level. It was a wonderful match for the search team, a unanimous selection. I had the easy task of offering him the opportunity to come here, and very pleased to be able to do that. But I think the important significance I would put on the change of administration is the fact that there is a rebirth, an evolution, not a revolution, about how we need to get things done. I share Dr. Burke's enthusiasm for our students, for our faculty, but I'm really impressed with the concept that school is a special place. It's a place that offers you the whole array of opportunities for the future, even opportunities yet unknown or unexpected because you've been given the opportunity to be prepared, to think on your feet, to use your skills, to access information in a way that in another setting you may not have been given as much time or as much effort in terms of the support staff. What I particularly also like is that in his selection of candidates and his empowerment of teachers, he's looking for missionaries, individuals that want to be in this environment every day to do what they do best, and that's to instruct young learners. And I see that in the corridors, I sense it in the student body, I feel it in the participation at social events and club and class activities. And school is more than just a hall for academic standards and learning. It's a place where youngsters build ethical understanding and build moral turpitude and moral skills that put them in a position in the future to make decisions that will be, I think, very good decisions in terms of their lifelong experiences. So it's the beginning of a future, we think, for young men and women as they exit our high school.
And as I always put it to kids, if you participate in extracurricular activities, after school obviously, you'll never get a chance to do that again when you're an adult. You get things for free and learn things for free now that you'll have to pay an arm and a leg for in adult education.
Well, it's interesting you should say that. I have a similar kind of philosophy that I try and share with the students, particularly those that I call reluctant learners. This is the only place in their entire career that they're going to be able to make a mistake. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't cost them anything.
Right.
And they can explore things without having the risk of having to wear it. Now, if someone told me in 1969 that in 1999 I'd be sitting in a studio with a group of students putting on a television show for a city, I would say that students, forget it, they're incapable of doing that. The entire age of technology has made school a venue to be able to pursue anything that you want to. And our job is to get those folks who are anxious learners to become less nervous, reluctant learners to become more enthusiastic, and those folks who embrace learning to get them to soar. And I think it's a matter of empowerment. As Dr. Martin pointed out, it's teacher empowerment, it's student empowerment. And when you do that, and when the students realize that they have a piece of the action and they're important pieces to this machinery called education, and that they're respected for what they contribute, both in the classroom, on the athletic field, on the drama stage, and that every one of them have talents and abilities that sometimes they don't even want to talk about. But when used and utilized, it enhances their personal life, it enhances their opportunities to go to college, and it makes for a much happier environment.
I think it does, and I think that's something that the students and the faculty have already exhibited in this first month of school. Let me digress for a moment and shift the discussion along in a different direction. You've had a short period of time coming on board over the summer, and now that the school year has begun, you've had about 5 or 6 weeks of school under your belt. You've looked at the program of studies from the previous administration, you've talked to faculty, you've had an opportunity really to hire about 30% of the faculty yourself. As you begin to make your plans for next year's budget and for next year's program of studies, do you see a trend? Do you see, are you developing concepts or ideas of how you would like to put the Dr. Dan Burke stamp on your stay here at Melrose High?
Well, I think we have to look at a more user-friendly schedule. Our present schedule inhibits any student from getting a full year credit or credit for a twice-a-week course and able to take, for example, dual enrollment. Our seniors right now cannot be dual enrolled and still maintain the kind of presence that would allow them to take the course that these young people are enjoying right here. We should semesterize some courses. I think we have to look at, of course, accreditation. We have to get a very, very good focus not only on where we've been, but where we want to go. And that's a collective decision. I expect that by the end of this month I will have a functioning faculty senate that will allow teachers, again, to be empowered a little bit, to have an input. And it's a two-way street, though. It also will be able to allow me to address folks that are not, and I shouldn't say not merely lead teachers, but a broader range and scope of teachers. I would like to see us start a significant internship, particularly for those students that fulfill all their obligations. It's now the last 8 weeks of school. I'm in college. I've done everything you've wanted me to do, Dr. Burke. I do not come in late. I'm here every day on time, and I even take my pass to go to the bathroom. Well, these people are practically on the next step. I would like to see something that would allow them to intern within the parameters of time and learning, keep a log, make a presentation, and allow them to get out in the real world and shadow professionals and shadow people in careers that they would like to pursue.
Well,
for starters.
Well, it's a hefty agenda, and I'm sure it's one that you'll take to the faculty and to the students and the committee and move that agenda forward. I'd like to also maybe have you reflect on something and see how valuable that experience has been in terms of your administrative roles as a principal over the past number of years. You mentioned that in your previous teaching career, you taught in the classroom as a math teacher. You served in administrative capacity as a vice principal, but you spent a great deal of time working with and counseling young men and women in guidance. What do you envision the role or the responsibility of an enhanced guidance program for high school to be?
The guidance department, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, is probably the most important department beyond the principal. Tongue-in-cheek. Seriously, the guidance department is the one place where students should be able to go and logically make the next step to their career and have people there who will support them. I can never forget the time that my secretary at the Boston School Committee came in and said, "My son has started a group and he wants to play at your dance. Can he do that?" And I said, "Well, how much do they cost?" "It's going to be $1,000. And I said, "I'm not hiring anyone for $1,000. And you know something? The new kids on the block went somewhere else that weekend. I made a judgment call on something I didn't know a lot about. The guidance department is the kind of people, or should be staffed by the kind of people, who encourage people to shoot for the stars and explain that church steeples aren't bad. If they end up on church steeples, that's a good situation. They can't be judgmental. They have to be an advocate for young people. And we've talked about this before, Dr. Martin. Students, like adults, all go to work carrying a certain amount of personal rocks on their back. You don't see them. But the guidance department is the one place that students should be able to go, and irregardless of their background or their circumstances, there is absolute trust. There is action directed at their futures, and there's an advocate there. An advocate that will come to me, they'll go to teachers, they will work for the students. And we have, I think, the beginnings of an incredibly fine guidance department here. We had some good professionals from last year. We have a new lead counselor. These are the people who write the recommendations for kids to go to college. These are the people who pick up the phone and fight for our young people. And I don't think, looking at them right now, they like to accept no for answers. And that's the way they should be. What I liked, the way I put it when I hired one of the guidance counselors this year, that she looked at me, she said, "Well, what do you expect of a guidance counselor?" And I said, "You're the one person in this building that when you come to my office, my hands should start to perspire, because you're pushing the envelope in the best interest of the young person you're coming to speak about." And that's their job. And that particular counselor has learned it well, because my hands do perspire when she comes to my door.
That's good. That's good. Maybe I'd like to shift now, make sure we have a few moments at the end of our taping to talk a little bit about this special fundraising activity you've begun this year. And maybe you will share with our viewing audience the goal of the fundraising activity and enlist their support and aid in this activity that will in fact benefit students depending upon their willingness to contribute to this activity. I've sort of masked the discussion so that you can sort of spring it upon the audience what this fundraising activity might be.
Well, to put it quite plainly, there is another man who works in the Melrose School Department, Dr. Sam Bolognese. He is in charge of the SPED operation, and he's a good friend. We have a lot in common. He has gray hair. I have gray hair. He went to Christopher Columbus High School. I went to Christopher Columbus High School. His mother loved him. My mother loves me. And we're both very fat. So we decided to do the best we could to cut administrative fat from the Melrose school system. And what we're going to do on August 22nd is we're going to get weighed in.
October.
Right. And from that point, October 22nd, to April 1st, we are going to be on a competitive diet. And we're going to ask our friends from the Melrose community to pledge a certain amount of money for each pound of weight we lose. Now, Mr. Bolognese and I have a private bet, which we will probably reveal later on during the great loss-a-thon. But what we found is there are a number of other people on staff who are going to join us in the loss-a-thon. Now, we have 6 sources that anybody who pledges money can dedicate their money to. Mr. Bolognese's favorite direction of money is the SPED summer program. I'm kind of fond of the Melrose Scholarship Program. But we also have the Melrose High School Student Government, the Melrose School Art Program, the Melrose School Drama Program, and there's also an item called Other. So if somebody wanted to lose weight and dedicate their earnings from what they've lost to another school program, the audiovisual department, METV, or if they wanted to dedicate it to a skateboard park, they could do that. But April 1st, it's all over. And I want to share, just you and me, just the two of us, not to tell anyone else, that I'm going to beat Dr. Bolognese. I'm going to lose more weight than him, and I'm going to lose more percentage than him. And too, he might say something different about me, but we'll see.
I have a question about that. When you make a bet such as this with someone else, how long have you known Dr. Bolognese?
Well, Mr. Bolognese, Dr. Bolognese, when he first met me, brought me in the 1957 yearbook, and he showed me my picture as a sophomore.
Oh, so he knew you from a long time ago.
So we go back a long way.
I didn't know that. See, because what I'm thinking is, if you had just met in Melrose recently, then he didn't know your dieting history and you didn't know his, so...
He keeps sending over jelly donuts to me, though. I think he knows they're my favorite.
A soft spot for fresh donuts.
This is true.
Well, I think it's exciting, and I know several people have indicated they would like to join, and people can contact Dr. Burke's office or Sam Bolognese's office, get the form, and pledge pennies per pound or dollars per pound to support worthwhile student activities.
Okay, well, I've got the word. It's time to get going. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm Leonard Caplan for Dr. Charles Martin here on the first segment of Martin on Melrose, saying please join us next time, and so long.